The Man Who Was Sherlock Holmes is a 1937 comedy detective mystery suitable for family viewing. The film has a rating of suitable for all audiences. It is a German-language film that is available with English subtitles, but hear me out, for this film is a largely unknown gem. It begins with our two heroes along the railway track, waiting in the pouring rain for the night train to come by, and they have every intention to stop it. Already their conversation seems to suggest that these are not Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, albeit that they look the part. They boldly flag down the train, get aboard and tell the conductor to get the train moving again. They want to know who the passengers are. They want to see the passengers' passports the conductors keep in their little cubicle. The imposing big tall one with the piercing eyes does not ask for this. No, he demands it. This is a man in a hurry, a man on a mission, a man on the hunt. It doesn't take long and people on the train realise just who has joined them. The legendary Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are among them. That, of course, despite the two insisting with the conductors that they are not said men and are to be addressed as Mr. Flynn and Mr. Macpherson. After all, would not Messrs. Holmes and Watson be travelling incognito whilst hunting villains all across the European continent? Soon enough, the train arrives in Brussels, where one, bold as brass, waltzes into the luxurious Palace Hotel and occupies a suite, once again insisting that one is Mr. Flynn and Mr. Macpherson. Never does one say one is Sherlock Holmes, and yet within minutes everybody knows. There is throughout the story a gentleman in a rather garish check coat who, whenever told Sherlock Holmes is about, bursts out laughing. This happens first in the lobby of this particular hotel, but more about him later. What makes this film magical, what elevates it, are the two actors. Hans Albers plays the would-be Sherlock Holmes, and Heinz Rühmann plays his sidekick, the dubious Dr. Watson. The two of them are sublime. Hans Albers is everything you want a Sherlock Holmes to be. Energetic, decisive, courageous. Heinz Rühmann, meanwhile, is the doubting Thomas, but a loyal companion to his friend no matter what befalls them. There is a scene where the two of them each are having a bath in separate bathrooms in their hotel suite while singing a song together and exchanging shouted pleasantries, which is just pure magic. The chemistry between the two men is never in doubt. The two actors were in fact friends in real life. It shows. No sooner does word spread that Sherlock Holmes is in town than of course they are asked for help by the police chief in a case which bewilders everyone. Brussels is hosting a world exhibition. As part of this, 4 incredibly precious Mauritius stamps were on display. Someone has swapped them for fakes. Sherlock Holmes is asked to solve the riddle before this embarrassing breach of security becomes public. By coincidence, they were on the train with 2 lovely young heiresses who now seem to have a connection to this crime. Holmes and Watson rush to visit their chateau at Yvel. Foiling burglars, discovering hidden doors, secret passageways and underground workshops, they realise that the professor who left the chateau to the young ladies just recently was in fact a master forger, but a man with connections to organised criminals who didn't want to let him retire. However, just as our two heroes seem to be cracking the case, the police is onto them about their not really being Holmes and Watson. Morris and Mackie are now wanted men themselves. So they seek to further their investigations, as well as find a hiding place by getting in touch with the criminal gang which had colluded with the forger. Unfortunately for them, they find the boss of these criminals turns out to be a villain with whom they already had a run-in back at the hotel. It all seems to be going horribly wrong. They're thrown into the coal bunker to be dealt with later by the dastardly crime ring. That's when the villain realises that this fake Holmes has stolen his watch. A watch that is of course of tremendous value to him, for good reason, as the film later reveals. But getting back into that coal bunker proves harder than one might think, for Holmes and Watson, or whoever they are, have taken precautions to make it next to impossible to get at them. The scene with the two of them in the coal bunker trying to steady the props against the door as the baddies outside are trying to smash it down with a battering ram is quite thrilling, and one does get a sense of our two heroes being in genuine peril. Of course, there is a last-minute twist and the police arrive to save the day. Well, sort of. Our two heroes find themselves still alive, but now under arrest and on trial for fraud. The court case is a masterpiece. Rather than ashamed, the two men are cheeky as can be. Guilt? What guilt? It isn't long and they get to defend themselves against all the accusations. Of course, the fact that they were always insisting that they were not Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson stands them in good stead. But then follows a tour de force in which they set out all the crimes and mysteries they have solved while in Brussels. The 4 priceless Mauritius stamps turn up soon enough, inside a certain villain's pocket watch, of course. By this time they have the court in the palm of their hands. They tell of how they are in fact real London private detectives, but had always struggled to make a living, until they bought themselves the necessary clothes to have people mistake them for Holmes and Watson. From then on, business boomed. But one problem still remains. The prosecutor insists they still need to answer to the law for the damage done with their impersonation of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. After all, what about the true Holmes and Watson? What about their reputations? Surely it could not be tolerated that a couple of con artists, no matter how well-meaning, could hawk for business using these two reputable gentlemen's names. This is where the man in the loud check coat with a booming laugh makes yet another appearance, as he addresses the court, claiming to be the only damaged party. And when asked what his name is, he responds, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. As it turns out, he doesn't mind these two gentlemen having taken Sherlock Holmes' name in vain in the slightest. It goes without saying, the two heroes, Maurice Flynn and Mackie Macpherson, win their case. They even shake hands with a whole bench of judges and lawyers. It's an all-round happy ending and either man gets the girl. This film is a curio. It's a must-see for any Sherlock Holmes fan. But what makes it even more extraordinary is its origin. This was made in 1937 Germany, during the Nazi years, yet there is not a hint of propaganda. It's just joyous. Germany was regarded as a place of film mastery prior to the war. Hitchcock famously went to learn his craft there. As we know, they lost almost all their talent as the representatives of the liberal arts fled Germany for Hollywood as the Nazi grip tightened. But not all could just up and leave, and so there was still a goodly number of people in the country who knew how to make a really good film, and not just some bland propaganda. This is such a film. It is magical. Its pace at times is breathtaking for its day. It has a sense of humour as well as drama. Moreover, it has bounce, true pizzazz. It has real charm. The courtroom sequence resolving it all at the end is a joy. But most of all, Hans Albers and Heinz Rühmann are true stars. Were they to have been English speakers, they would readily have held their own among Hollywood's finest. Albers in particular here produces a very fine Sherlock Holmes, or would-be Sherlock Holmes. In fact, I think this is one of the great Sherlock Holmes performances. If this were a more well-known film, then Albers' delivery of Sherlock Holmes would be very highly regarded. I would suggest even as one among the all-time best performances. His charisma just knows no bounds. Now, this is far from a perfect film. It has its flaws, as most films do, but this is a good film. Very notably, it was made in 1937, 2 years before Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce became the most iconic representation of Holmes and Watson. Albers and Rühmann were onto something in this little comedy adventure, and today, all this time later, it still shows. I know it can be a big ask for people to view a foreign language film, and usually when people ask you to do so, it is for you to watch some dreary art film made in post-war Czechoslovakia that won some prize somewhere and is about disillusioned workers in a cork factory. This is not the case here. This is a truly entertaining film, but one from a most unexpected quarter and with two outstanding actors of whom you have more than likely never heard. But give it a watch. I think you'll like it. That's all for now from the projection booth atop the Cyber Pass. Thank you very much, and goodbye.